Lauren Groff, thank you so much for joining me. If you don't know her, Lauren is the author of The Vaster Wilds and Matrix and so many others, and owner of an independent bookstore called The Lynx. Could you tell me a little bit about The Lynx, your new bookstore?
Absolutely, I'd be glad to. So we were supposed to open yesterday on April 1st, but of course, you know, permits, contractors, it was really difficult. So it'll be at some point in the next week or so, we'll have our soft opening, then our grand opening on the 28th of April. So I'm really excited. So the Lynx is a 2,500 square foot general interest bookstore with a special emphasis on banned books by LGBTQI people, books that are currently sort of under a lot of duress, especially in the state of Florida, because they teach actual history, right? Like actual Black history. The things that I think the people in power actually don't want people reading, those are some of the books that we'll be pushing really, really hard and celebrating. But we have an outdoor event space. We have an indoor event space. We're going to have a cafe. I really wanted to create a community space, a space that is open for everyone, and a place where you can come in contact with ideas that you may not be able to come in contact with, right? I want a space that people in Florida, where we are, if they don't necessarily live in hyper progressive Gainesville, which is where the store is opening, they can still feel like there's a place to go, right? There's a place to go where they feel loved and accepted. And we have so many books that will speak to their experience. So this is what we wanted.
So has anything surprised you so far about the process of opening a store or of being a bookseller?
Everything. So I'm a writer, and I'm not a business person. I have an agent for that. So it's so difficult. It's so hard. Just HR stuff and insurance stuff and all of the math that one needs. Luckily, I find that I'm actually pretty competent. But even more luckily, I've hired much more competent people than I am. So they will soon be taking over this stuff. I have an operations manager and an events manager, and they're amazing humans. And so thank God I will not have to be doing everything very soon.
To that end, I mean, have you received any advice or any guidance that you found especially helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have actually been talking about this idea for 10 years with Mitchell Kaplan from Books and Books. Also, he's like just the godfather, right? Like everybody loves and knows Mitchell.
Totally.
He's the best human, right? And he's in Florida, and he does so many great things with banned books. Even, when you go to the Books and Books in Coral Gables, they have this sign over the doorway that says something very beautiful about "Here we read banned books" or something. It's just like it's very necessary. So he's always been the godfather of my bookstore. But also, the first person I called when I thought we were going to do this was Emma Straub, who told me not to do it. And then I called when I announced it. Ann Patchett wrote to me and she said, "You fool, I'm so proud of you." And then one day I went down to Judy Blume's bookstore, and she and her husband are the best humans on the planet. And they pulled me to the side and they just told me so many things that I needed to do. And I would love to be a bookseller like Judy Blume, who goes in there and shelves books and cleans the windows and is really hyper attentive to just the small things in the bookstore, right? She doesn't necessarily do the human resources and things that I find very tricky. She's there out of love. And that's what I would like to do someday.
So as you have seen, and as you've said, opening a bookstore is really hard. And being an author was already hard enough. And then you add on top of that, taking on banned books in Florida. So what motivated you to do this?
I'm a fury. I'm a woman of fury, unfortunately. I'm so mad. I'm living in this state, and I think it could be a spectacular state. The people that I know who live here are good people. There are good people in this state. But our politicians are so egregious, and they're so nasty. And does this, right? The people doing the book banning, a few people. That's a handful of people imposing their will on the majority of people who do not support book bans. And it's so outrageous. And it's not just the books that are actually being pulled. It's the cold terror that it's inspiring in librarians and in school teachers, right? There's that horrific law on the books, may not be on the books, but it was proposed about treating teachers who give students LGBTQI books as felons, right? They could get a felony for that, which is so outrageous. But what that does is it closes down freedom of expression, right? It closes down the ability for these teachers to provide students who may desperately need a book like that in their lives. They can't do it, right? They can't support people. They're not allowed to show people the love that they have for these for books and for the people who need it. So I find it just outrageous. I'm furious all the time about it. I'm furious about what happened on Monday with the abortion stuff. I'm just furious about living in a state that is so backwards, even though it's full of good people. It's just infuriating.
Is there organizing in Florida that you especially admire or that you've participated in around banned books specifically?
PEN America has a whole office down in Miami, and the great Katie Blankenship is there. I am such a fan of Katie. She's so smart, and she's so passionate. And she's so good at saying, this is actually not a political stance. It's just a common sense thing, right? We're not being political. We're just saying this is absurd. So we are doing an event on our grand opening on April 28th with PEN America. They're coming up to have a banned books panel with us. And then in July, we're going to Orlando to do another banned book event with them as well.
So you were the first author ambassador for Independent Bookstore Day in 2016. Now you're getting ready to participate in Independent Bookstore Day for the first time as a store owner and bookseller. So has your sense of what this day means or how you react to it, has that changed at all?
Well, so we are doing a lot. We're, knock on wood, our grand opening is the next day, but we will be open on the 27th also, and we will have a bunch of programming for that day too. To be honest, it's so much more urgent and meaningful now as I'm in the shoes of a bookseller, even though I think we've sold maybe 6 books so far. Mostly through bookshop.org. As an author, you do it because you love bookstores, right? I mean, they're my havens. Coming at it from the author's point of view, it's a day to appreciate these places that are places of love and generosity and beauty. And coming at it as now a bookstore owner, I just want to shout to the skies what we can do and sort of the community space that we are and what we want to do for our city. I don't think anybody would ever open a bookstore to self-aggrandize, because that would be so silly, right? But you do it for the people you love, right? You do it for the people who need a bookstore desperately, who need events, and who need just a place to gather and to come into conversation with not only authors of the past, but readers of the present, right? And booksellers are the best people on the planet. So I found that out at Winter Institute. They're really so great. I mean, I like writers, but we're like so neurotic. Booksellers are so much more generous in some ways. Yeah, it's great. It's all good. It's all beautiful.
Oh, Lauren, congratulations on the Lynx. And thank you so much for talking to me. And I'm sure I join so many of our followers in just saying, we're so excited for you to open.
Thank you.
And so excited for you to join our community.
I just have to say, there will be gremlins, but luckily we can sort of chase them out over time, right? Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I don't know how people do this. They do it all the time. I don't know how they do this.